After a multitude of attempts that all resulted in ciabatta, I finally feel confident in my ability to produce a real baguette. Now, these are not going to be as good as the ones you would find in a Parisian bakery. However, they're still pretty dang good, and they only take 4 hours. So, today we're making baguettes. Let's get into it.
To make our baguette dough, we're going to add 225 grams of water and 350 grams of bread flour to a bowl. Start off by mixing with a spoon and then switch to a soaking wet hand until the flour is fully combined and hydrated. Then sprinkle 9 grams of salt on top of the dough and set aside. Next, in a small bowl, we're going to mix together 30 grams of water and 8 grams of yeast and then set this aside with the dough for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, add the yeast mixture into the salted dough and squeeze with a soaking wet hand to combine. This will take a few minutes, but will eventually come together, so keep squeezing. I tend to start with a squeeze and turn motion and then eventually start folding the dough over onto itself to get something resembling a ball. Once combined, cover and let sit for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it's time to do our first set of folds. With a wet hand, take a corner of the dough, pull it back until you feel tension, and then fold it back over onto itself. Repeat 4 to 5 more times, rotating the bowl as you go. Then cover and set aside for 30 more minutes. After the 30 minutes are up, perform your second set of folds. You should again be able to do 4 to 5 folds with, you guessed it, a soaking wet hand. After the folds, try to tuck and round off the dough like you see me doing here to increase the surface tension and create a nice tight dough ball. Cover and set aside for 1 hour. After a total of 2 hours, the dough should have grown in size and be quite buoyant and jiggly. Transfer to a floured work surface and then divide into 2 equal pieces. You can just eyeball this, but if you have a kitchen scale, it's nice to keep things consistent when you can. We're then going to gently press each piece into a square with our fingers and then roll them into a cylinder. Starting at the far side of the dough, you're going to roll it towards yourself. The motion is to fold a little bit over towards yourself and then push it slightly out and away to seal and create tension. Cover and let rest for 20 minutes. To shape your baguettes, take one of your pieces of dough and press it out into a rectangle. Then fold about 1/3 of the dough over itself so 1/3 is still exposed. Flip the dough around and then fold the final third into the middle using your thumb to press down and seal the seam. Then at that seam that you just created, fold the top half over the bottom half using your thumb to seal the new seam that you're creating as you go. Then using very gentle pressure, roll out the baguette until it's about 18 inches. You can use a little extra pressure at the ends to get the classic points. Then transfer to a greased parchment lined upside down baking tray. What this method allows you to do is to very gently stretch out the dough by folding it over on top of itself a few different ways without having to roll it very much at the end. My first few baguette attempts resulted in ciabatta because I was being too rough at this stage and was basically ripping apart the gluten strands. Now that we have our baguette shaped, we're going to create what I've been calling a poor man's couche. Instead of investing in the linen, I just folded the parchment paper around the baguettes, add a few kitchen tools for support like these microplanes, and then cover and let rise for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, the baguette should have grown about 40% in size and will slowly bounce back when poked. Spread them back out on the baking tray and then slash the tops 5 times each with a bread lame. These should be long, mostly vertical, and done quickly so the razor doesn't drag. Then spray them down with some water and bring them over to the oven. So the baguettes are going to go into a preheated 500-degree oven on a baking steel or pizza stone. Then to a cast iron that's also been preheating in the oven, add about a cup of boiling water. Do this fast and with baking mitts as the steam can potentially scald you. Bake for 10 minutes, release any remaining steam, and then lower the temp to bake at 450 degrees for 15 more minutes. Remove the baguettes from the oven and let cool. The baked baguette should have a caramely golden brown color to them and will be very light. And like any good bread when it comes out of the oven, it crackles. Just listen.
These are the best I've baked to date by far. Now, full transparency, they may have gotten a little dark on the bottom, but you know, the color on top is great, so we're gonna go with that. So let's dig in to this. Woo-wee. That is a well-baked baguette. It's light, the interior is fluffy, the exterior is crispy. With only 4 hours of work, what more could you ask for from a baguette? Let me know if you make this.